This podcast is meant for general health information and is not meant to override any medical advice. All questions will be screened and not contain any personal information. If you want a private consultation, contact us via positivechoice.org, or you can contact your provider directly. Thank you and enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome to the Positive Choice Wellness Podcast. My name is Melanie and I'm an exercise physiologist.
And my name is Kimberly and I'm a registered dietitian.
Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, how are you?
I am doing quite well. I wanted to first get started. We don't have any guests today, so it's just the two of us today, which is fine.
Yes.
I like your company, so this is good.
Yeah, back at you.
But I wanted to start off with just asking, what brings you joy today, Kimberly?
Yes, I think my answer is going to be super vague, but I feel like the whole holiday season brings me joy, to be honest with you. It's my favorite time of year. So it's like, yummy food, fun traditions, movie nights. I don't know. Looking forward to all of it. Christmas lights, you name it. I'm here for it.
Vaguely gestures to room this. Yeah.
All of this around. Everything the light touches now. But
I was hoping you would say that.
But yeah, that's what's making me happy these days. What about you?
Oh man. It wasn't that recent, but I recently quote unquote, went to Japan. And so back from Japan, and I went to a local Japanese market not too long ago and was like a kid in a candy store. Just like, oh, I know what all of this is. And then I was buying everything I could possibly get my hands on. I found real wasabi root, which I was really excited about. Spent way too much money. It was a great time.
Fair,
and
totally
it brought
fair.
me joy. I was like, I'll go broke. This is great. So
it's a good place to do it.
Bring me joy.
Fun. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was exciting to go somewhere and like recognize the type of food that I was buying instead of being like, I don't know what this is. I was like, I was there. I ate it. I know what this is. Oh my gosh. I had that in Japan. Look, there's that weird salad that has like mushrooms and sticks in it. And I ate that too. And like, there's some cool stuff. It was actually a pretty good salad, but I don't know what was in it. I really don't.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
So
sounds
yes,
delightful though.
I'm still in the throes of that. So I'm still enjoying my return and all the experiences now that come with understanding what I just experienced. So
yes, amazing.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well, today, unfortunately, it's not about Japan. As much as I'd love to talk about that for the next hour, it's not.
Yes.
So we are not talking about Japan. We are going to talk about the holidays. And because this episode's coming out in the thick of it, like we're not quite at the new year yet. You know, we have a lot of stuff going on around this time of year, whatever holidays you may or may not celebrate. And even if you don't celebrate any, you're still surrounded by all the things that come with it. So you're kind of exposed to the same things everyone else is, regardless of how you spend your time. So we felt like, as per is tradition, we tend to do these holiday episodes this time of year because we know people need that extra support and that extra, you got them. So
yeah, agreed. I know. I think it's a time of year where the willpower almost starts to like decrease a little bit or gets tested a little bit more perhaps. So yeah, I think it's time for those habits to kick in. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. It's just we have to establish them. And at this point, are they established? Maybe not, but that's okay.
True.
What we want to make sure we emphasize with this particular talk is just to recognize that, the holidays are hard. Even if it's a joyous time, as Kimberly gestured vaguely to the entire universe, it could be very joyous. But it still comes with the difficulties around whether it's the food that you're encountering, or maybe it's not having family around that you wish was around. Like there's a lot of things that could be going on right now that just makes life a little more challenging for a lot of people. So we're hoping today we can talk about ways you can get through the holidays, feel good about it, and still enjoy yourself and not sit there and go like, I have to white knuckle it because I can't eat anything, because that's no fun. No. We don't want you to feel that way at any holiday event of any sort.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah. So you were saying, Kimberly, that you have a handy dandy list of things you can do.
I sure do. A handy dandy list of tips. They're largely nutrition related, as you can imagine, but tips that are just like kind of strategic or like almost hands-on advice. I feel like that's what I personally need in my life. So anyway, hands-on advice for like, how can I navigate a situation with food more successfully. And yes, this is geared towards holiday, like you mentioned, but really this can be used year round. Like if you go to a buffet or if you go to a party or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like this is advice that can, I don't know, withstand the test of times, I suppose.
I think we forget that all the holidays are spread out equally throughout the year, with exception to this time of year where they all kind of cram like a whole bunch together all at once, which feels overwhelming, but they're year round. So this can apply.
It's true. Absolutely. Do you want me to go through my tips? Okay.
Yes.
Fabulous. So my first one is probably one of my favorite nutrition tips of all time, but don't skip breakfast. A lot of these, eating holidays perhaps that we have coming up, I think we want to perhaps compensate with or prepare in advance for, the bigger meal we're going to eat later on by skipping at the beginning. And, there's a lot of good research that points us to the fact that breakfast is a fabulous way to start our day, makes us have stable blood sugars during our day, and ultimately fights cravings and things like that as we go through. So anyway, don't skip breakfast to compensate for calories you might be eating later on in your day.
I like
Still
that.
important to eat.
That's a good tip. I mean, it would further the case that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And we've said that a long time. And I know that there's a few types of eating styles like intermittent fasting and whatnot that might challenge that a little bit. But
correct. Yeah.
I think the takeaway from this is just don't skip meals. Don't just skip a meal to justify a meal later.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Blanket statement. Don't skip meals.
Yeah,
for sure. My next tip would be to use a smaller plate. Okay.
What?
It's a little,
that's crazy.
I know it's a little bit of mind trickery, but we're very visual eaters, right? So if we see a lot of if we see a big plate, we're going to fill that sucker up all the way. Right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to word this eloquently. Versus if we use a smaller plate and fill it up, we'll still feel full. Off of less volume of food, right? But if you put, the smaller amount of food on a bigger plate and you see all that white space, generally once we're done eating, we still feel hungry because we've seen so much. So
we eat with our eyes.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's a little psychological trick, but effective. Use a smaller plate.
I'm sure I've shared this story before at some point. I've been doing this for a while, so I probably have. And if I have, cool. You haven't heard it before, so we're going to tell you about it.
Yeah.
But when I was younger, and granted, there's a lot of issues with the story because I was raised by a mom who was monitoring my diet pretty hardcore. So there's some issues in and of itself. But anyways, it was Thanksgiving and I was, I've always been of this, I have to eat the littlest amount possible mentality at this point in my life because I was 12 or 13. And my cousin, who's the same age as me, I just watched her during Thanksgiving, just this is Thanksgiving because that's when I saw her most of the time. And obviously we're well past that. But point being, buffet style, she gets her plate and she puts a little dollop here and a little dollop there and a little dollop here. And there's all this white space and just these tiny little portions of food. And she had the exact amount she wanted. And she sat down all happy. And I thought to myself, I'm going to try to imitate her. I'm going to do that. So I made an attempt. And I did not succeed, but I tried by looking at it going, maybe I could do the smallest portion possible. And for some reason, I still ended up with this volume filled massive pile of food on my plate. I don't know how, because I was actively trying to do what she did. And I very miserably missed the mark.
You're such a champion. Yeah, absolutely. A for effort, right? No, it's, it's very true. And when we were just saying, when we see all the empty gaps and stuff, we're going to immediately want to get up and get seconds and things. So anyway, smaller plate can help us with that. The standard dinner plate at home is close to 12 inches. Some are 13. More 9 inches would be ideal.
And especially if you're going to a family's house, they usually may not serve you on a regular plate, but a paper plate, and they can get those big old platter plates.
Yes, absolutely. I've definitely used those, especially on Thanksgiving before. Yeah, guilty.
So they're great for food, but then there's a lot of food. So maybe get smaller plates and just force people to have to go back for more.
Exactly. Okay. Number 3 is to put vegetables on that 9-inch plate first. All right. Because vegetables tend to be something that's, especially when they're raw, they're a little bit more voluminous. not, to your point, spinach, for example, is not a good case when it's cooked.
Spinach is a terrible example because you can cook 5 pounds and you get like a cup.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that really shrinks up. But put the vegetables on your plate first, so that you kind of prioritize the space on your plate for them. Which brings me to tip number 4. They kind of go hand in hand. Actually eat the vegetables first.
That's the tough part, I think, for a lot of people.
Probably. They don't look necessarily as exciting as some of our other entrees, but actually eating them first, it'll start to fill us up with fiber and all those good nutrients that we want to prioritize anyway, right?
Exactly.
And that can kind of set the pace for the rest of the meal, maybe help us not overeat quite as much or whatever the case may be. So there's some benefits to having those vegetables first.
I like that idea. And I also recommend too, especially if where you're going ends up being like a potluck scenario, be the vegetable person. So that way you have a vegetable you know you're going to eat.
I love that tip always, right? Like bring a dish you know you can have to some kind of gathering situation.
Exactly.
So that you know you have at least one option that's healthy for you. I think that's great.
Because, not every situation will be potluck style, but like just bring a veggie tray just to be polite, like, oh, I brought vegetables. Like
exactly.
I don't think I've been to a single potluck scenario where someone brought a veggie platter and everyone's like, veggie platter. Like everyone's like, oh boy, veggie platter. Yay. Like that's usually the response you get for those things. So be the veggie person.
I agree. I totally agree. I think that's great advice. Be the veggie person.
Yeah.
Let's see here. My 5th tip is to eat slow and savor your food. Okay. That's just a good, like, mindful eating tip in general. But during this time of year, especially, we're often eating foods that we don't get like all that often, or maybe we're getting our great so-and-so's special thing that we only eat once a year. You know what I mean? Some kind of like special family recipe. So if you're going to eat it, you might as well enjoy it, right? Savor it, be present. Don't be watching TV while you eat your meal, maybe,
Exactly.
Enjoy it.
It's always important to enjoy what you're eating. And if anyone at any point makes a meal and goes like, ugh, I don't want to eat this, like, then don't.
Exactly.
It's just the easiest answer. Don't do it.
Exactly.
Like if you don't like it.
Yeah. Don't force it. Don't do it.
Exactly.
I totally agree. That's good. Okay, let's see. Tip number 6 here is to wait 10 minutes before going back for seconds. And this is one of my favorite tips of advice because it takes roughly 20 minutes for your stomach to tell your brain that you are full, right? So sometimes we eat like vacuums. We like hoover down food throughout that, 20 minutes. And then it's almost too late at that point. We don't feel good. Versus if we kind of slow it down a little bit and put a little delay, a little pause in between going back for seconds, even if you do get up and go get more, odds all you'll grab a little bit less. So give yourself time to like kind of catch up to your eyeballs, your stomach time to catch up, right?
That 20-minute delay from our stomach to our brains, and which is a great defense mechanism in times of feast or famine, because of course, if you're in famine, then it's feast and you're like, I can eat a bunch and not realize I'm super full. Right. Not so great when you're trying to monitor and manage your weight. That's where it's this defense mechanism is like, why do I have this?
Yes.
Well, unfortunately, it's a little outdated, but we got to make it work,
Exactly. Yeah. Got to work with it. That is very true. Very true. Okay. Tip number 7 is one of my favorites for a lot of things in general, but don't arrive hungry. Believe it or not, we don't have to arrive to, intentional food gatherings starving either. So this is good advice for even just like, going to the grocery store, going to a party or whatever, but don't arrive starving. Have a little something in your stomach before you go so that you have a little more willpower. We don't go, quite as hard on appetizers, perhaps. I mean, when you're super hungry, it challenges mindful thinking. So especially in the scenarios where you want to make good decisions, you're setting yourself up for failure if you show up super hungry, because your brain's going to be like, but I'm dying. And you're like, yeah, you clearly are. Let's go eat this cake. 100%. Yeah. It's like, you need this. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you can logic your way into anything when you're hungry.
Oh, absolutely. If that's not the truest thing I've ever heard. Absolutely. Okay. I got 3 more tips for us. The next one is lose the booze, which I know might sound like a bummer, but it has a lot of extra calories for us. It doesn't really do much other than provide us with calories. And in some cases, depending on the drink we're having, sugar and things like that come with it. Right. So if we opt out of alcohol or ultimately maybe just have one glass of something, right, as opposed to, multiples, we can save ourselves a lot in that way.
Which I think would be a good time to mention what calories are in what, if you happen to know, because I do, but if you don't, I can help you.
Please do. Tell me.
This is what I used to do this right before the holidays with my Healthy Balance classes and talk about the different calories in alcoholic beverages for context. It's really just to understand, like, this is why we're saying no. It's not like, oh, you're an adult, you can do what you want. Yeah, of course. But
right.
At what cost, right? Yeah. And so I like to make sure people have this perspective because they're wondering, like, I just don't understand. It's just a glass of wine. I'm like, yeah, but that glass of wine, a 5-ounce glass of wine runs anywhere between 110 to 120 calories, give or take.
Okay.
And some of you only get 300 for a meal. So that's a third of a meal right there, there in a beverage form.
And that's a little bit of liquid.
And that's if you're pouring the right portion size for wine, which most people don't do.
I was just going to say that. Mostly we're generous pourers. So 5 ounces is not a lot.
No, it's a little more than half a cup. So it's not a significant portion.
Yeah.
Another way to think about it is like a shot of alcohol is about 1.5 ounces.
Yep.
And that's roughly around 100 calories of any type. So someone's like, well, what about clear, like vodka or like silver tequila? And it's like, it could be literally anything. It could be moonshine.
Yeah.
It's alcohol. It's gonna have calories.
Yeah.
Just because it's not dark doesn't mean it doesn't have calories. It doesn't mean it's better for you if it's clear either. People like to use this misguided idea that, because it's a clear liquid, it's better. It's like, no, it's just how they made it. It has nothing to do with the amount of calories present. It's about 100.
Color does not make a difference. Yeah,
exactly. And then like the last one is beer. Because obviously there's a multitude of other spirits out there, but basically the major ones being like liquor or wine or beer, and beer being the last one. And because we live in San Diego, we have access to beer that is quite caloric, if you will. The average beer, I would say, in San Diego runs around 300 to 400 calories for a pint.
Oh, for
pretty
a pint.
high
Okay.
up there. Yeah, because a standard, like less than 5% beer, we're talking a light beer, about 4%, a can, 12 ounces, sits around 120 calories.
Wow. Okay. And there's obviously good variability there because there's, I've seen beers that are like 12% or whatever.
Oh,
so
yeah. Oh, you could get beers that are basically wine. You might as well call it wine at that point. Yeah. It's, and it's not even the same because then there's all that residual sugar, which adds to the calories. And the more alcohol you typically get in a beer, the more sugar you get in a beer too. They tend to go hand in hand. That's one of the problems. Same with hoppy beers, which is San Diego's kind of known for. The hoppier the beer, the more residual sugar tends to be in it to counter the bitterness of the hop. So
right.
It gets dangerous fast if it's really dangerous fast.
Yes, it can really snowball for us. Not to mention just like, we can start to lose our willpower a little bit or whatever as
it reduces our inhibitions because then we're like, I don't care anymore. And it's because that's what it does.
Yeah. It's doing what it was created to do. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Exactly. So we can save ourselves a lot of, or I guess just reap a lot of benefit if we really, really cut back or ultimately cut it out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like you save yourself a ton of calories because they find that most people, if you do drink, that tends to be where a brunt of your calories come from.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I super believe that. And I will say this can extend beyond alcohol. I think alcohol is a big caloric culprit, but there's also things at this time of year like eggnog, right? Or like things like that can really ramp those numbers up too. And just in general, the calories we get from beverages don't fill us up or have any benefit whatsoever. So trying to pay attention to those is a wise place to begin.
Exactly. Exactly. I agree.
Absolutely. Okay. Tip number 9, and you probably have some good advice when it comes to this one, is just keep moving. Right. I think that it's, as you do a little dance, I'm moving. I think that it's really easy to almost snowball in that we like maybe skip some meals, then we way overeat our whatever our holiday dinner is going to be, and then we just want to like sit on the couch like a bunch of potatoes because we don't feel good, right?
Yeah.
But I think in a perfect world we'd like take a little walk, maybe play some catch with, you know, a niece or a nephew or a grand kiddo, like something that you can think about. It's not like you got to go do, you know, an Ironman after your meal, but if you can move your body in a little gentle way, I think that could be helpful.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of that because this is my time to shine.
Yes.
So exercise. The big thing that is important to take away with exercise is one of the things it does is it influences our general mood and wellness. When the more you move, the better you feel, and they found that it kind of correlates to better decisions around the food we consume as well. So the better you're feeling, the better choices you tend to make around the things you're eating. So they kind of go hand in hand. And when we don't move as much, we feel crummier. So we often seek out comfort food, which unfortunately, this is the time of year for that.
Yeah.
So what could be helpful is really just making sure you're establishing some sort of a structured plan for yourself, just to make sure you get a point to get out there and move. Now, it doesn't have to be, as you said, like a marathon or whatever. But I don't think you should. I think it should just be put an emphasis on, are you getting out and moving, or are you sitting around a lot? And there's a common like challenge I know people face, specifically around the fact that it's darker earlier, it's colder out, you know, like there's a lot of things not going for us right now as far as being active, but hopefully what I hope that we do is utilize our resources, you know, whether it's free videos online or something, but like make a point just to move a little bit more or park farther away, get more activity where you can, you know, given the circumstances that are presented, you just have to work with what you got.
Absolutely. There's like, and in today's day and age where there is so much access to stuff like that on, you know, the internet or whatever, it's really, really easy to find ways to move regardless of what the excuse is to not, right? There's like always some kind of workaround. So I love that. Simple things like parking your car farther away, taking the stairs when you can, if you can, whatever, just to maximize being on your feet more, making your life a little less convenient, maybe.
Yeah. Because the more we sit, the less we move and the less we want to move, and it works against us. And then we're like, oh, but I don't feel like it. It's like, yeah, because you've been sitting nonstop. You have to get up.
Exactly.
And this is where I'll do like a shameless plug, positivechoice.org. We got all sorts of workout videos on our website that you can take advantage of that are free. And they're like some as low as 5 minutes.
Yes, absolutely. And some require absolutely no equipment at all. Some require a little bit. We have even more on our YouTube channel. They're really popular amongst our patients in class. So highly recommend utilizing those free resources. And these have the added benefit of being done by actual exercise physiologists. So
this is true.
You should take advantage.
I'm in many of them if you want to see what I look like. Yeah,
It's true. So good. I love it. So yes, moving our bodies. Don't
move more.
Don't stop. And then my 10th and final tip is kind of similar to what we've talked about already, but delay dessert. I had to come up with 10, you know what I'm saying? So that's the 10th one. But delay dessert, right? Same concept of it takes 20 minutes for your stomach to tell your brain that you're full. So give yourself some time, relax a little bit, separate it out. So that way, if and when you do choose to grab dessert, you'll probably grab a little bit less than if you immediately go for it after your meal. So give yourself some time. Yeah.
I would even piggyback off of that and say, don't deprive yourself either. Have dessert.
I agree.
Yeah,
I would totally agree with that. It's about balance, right? Have a piece of the cake instead of the whole thing. But
exactly.
But
I find there's power in that though, because it's this whole, oh, I shouldn't, oh, I can't, oh, I'm not supposed to. And we build up this narrative in our brains of what we're allowed to do based on what we're telling ourselves.
Right.
And then it ends up backfiring because then we feel this compulsion to have it now because we're like, oh, but it's bad. Oh, but I can't. Oh, but I shouldn't. And now it's like, oh, but it's so taboo. I'm gonna. And then you feel guilty and you kind of eat it out of shame, which just perpetuates this vicious cycle.
Right.
And that's where I always encourage people, enjoy something. Like you're a human being. You've tasted sugar. I'm sorry. You've been blessed with the flavor of sugar in your life.
Yep.
So you know what it tastes like. So you can't say, I'll never have it again. Good luck.
Yeah. May the force be with you on that one.
Yeah. Like that's not something that happens. So really at the end of the day, you've had it, you've been exposed to it. Now we have to find a way to balance it in our lives, but not to the point where it's every single day. Cause that's another thing too. I used to have this issue too with sweet stuff. I'd always have to feel compelled to eat it. And now I can go to parties and just not eat sugary things. I don't feel compelled to do it because I always tell myself, if I really want it, I'll go out and get it. Like if I really, really want that thing, I'll go do it. But right now I'm not feeling it. It doesn't mean I don't have access to it or can't find it later. I can absolutely do that. And it seems to work well for me because I have this almost like it's the end of the world. What if we'll never have it again? Mentality around food sometimes. And if I tell myself, oh, you can have this anytime you want, go to the store and buy it. That means if I want it, I'll get it. And it's kind of nice to have that power of being able to say, well, I don't want it right now, so I'm okay.
Yes. It makes you feel so like in control, you know? And I think that lack of control can feel scary sometimes. So that feels good. And it's reminding me a little bit of this dietitian I saw one time online. She really is like a big believer in and I am too, if you are start eating something and it's not doing it, like this isn't like the best pie you've ever had. It's like just okay or whatever. It's just not really hitting you in the right spot. You don't have to keep eating it either, right? Like you might as well. Yeah. You might as well, I don't know, dig into this stuff that is more
make
joyful
it worth
for
it.
you. Yes,
there make it worth it. Yeah.
Thank you.
No,
beautifully said. Make it worth it.
I used to say like treat yourself, like from Parks and Rec, like a long time.
Treat yourself.
Treat yourself. But like the main thing is, if you're gonna indulge, it better be worth it. Like
yes, yeah. Don't make it half whatever the word is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like if you get some mediocre piece of cake and you take a bite, you're like, oh, it's dry and the frosting tastes like garbage. Like then don't eat it. Yes. If it's not good, don't waste your calories there. Go back and get something else if you want something sweet. But you don't have to subject yourself to something that's subpar just because it's on your plate.
Exactly.
And we all have stuff like that we've encountered in our lifetimes. Like there's always food that you have put on your plate and you took a bite, went, not that great. And then you're like, but I gotta eat it. And then you eat the whole thing and you didn't like a second of it. So don't. Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah, absolutely okay. No food police is coming for you. Yeah. It's okay. Absolutely.
I mean, I hope no food police is coming for you. Yeah. Sometimes we got that relative who's like,
that's true.
That's true. Aside from those people, I guess, generally, if you don't love something, don't have it, don't take it. Like if you don't love pecan pie, don't eat pecan pie. Like just don't.
Absolutely. Yeah. Save it for the stuff that is like, no, this is my jam, don't, because odds are what will happen is we'll eat the thing that's like, whatever. And then we're going to get something else because it didn't like quite kick it for us. You know what I mean?
We keep eating around what exactly we want to get to until we eventually eat the thing we want. So like, I'll eat these 15 items before I get to the one I actually wanted.
Yep. 100%.
But yeah, the big thing though, just don't deprive yourself.
Yes.
No one thrives on that, and nothing about taking care of yourself in the holiday season will ever be solved by depriving yourself, because all it does is make you want it more, and then you'll just blow it on a different day.
Exactly. And it just kind of makes you like those voices, you just like can't stop thinking about it. You know what I mean? And I love that you say that don't deprive yourself, because I'm going to be honest. Some of the grumpiest people I know are the strictest with their eating. And I am a big believer that food does bring us joy and gives us pleasure. So we do need to get doses of that in there so that we don't snowball later,
Exactly. It's eating is a cultural thing. Yeah. It's not just a necessity for survival. It's cultural. We do a lot of our celebrations of pretty much almost every culture around the planet around food. Like that is what we do.
Absolutely.
And knowing that's how we celebrate, we should enjoy it. But like, this is where, ask yourself, is this worth it? Or is there something I would rather have that's more worth it to me? Like, am I taking this because I actually want it or because it was there? And it's more or less just being mindful about what you're choosing to have around the holidays and less about making sure everything's perfect. It's more like, well, is it worth the calories I'm about to eat? Heck yeah, it is. And then you're good. Like then you win. Yeah. That's winning.
That's winning. Yeah, you found the secret sauce. Yeah. Absolutely. That's good. I love that.
Yeah. And we were talking about some statistics prior to this of this, like, well, what are the statistics around like the weight gain around the holidays? And I found a handful of things, and I had a statistic, which I'm going to correct myself for, because I've been saying it wrong, because the average weight gain being 10 pounds between like October and New Year's, that's self-reported. So it wasn't actually statistical in the sense that it was self-reported. We don't know. These people are telling you what they gained, and it could be right, could be wrong. Who knows?
Right.
So there's a big flaw in that. But the consensus is it seems like the typical weight gain's around 2.5 pounds, give or take, around holiday season for most people. So it's not as much as we think it is. The drawback of it is we gain it and then continue with those behaviors for the rest of the year.
Right.
That's where we get into a little bit of trouble. And I will be the person to say this because we are going to have a New Year's episode. And I will say it again, is the first of the year doesn't change anything at all about what you did leading up to that point. Just so you know, whatever you did up to the first still happens. Still a thing.
That's good. That's very true. Absolutely.
Yep. And there's holidays year round. That's another reminder for folks. Like there's holidays year round. There's always a holiday. Yes, sure, they slam a few together around November, December time. So it feels like a lot. But the reality is it's year round. And these are behaviors that you could implement, as Kimberly was saying earlier on in the episode. You can implement these year round. They don't have to be just for this time of year because you're going to encounter various different times and places that this will may be really useful for you.
Yeah,
you know?
there was our temptations get tested on the regular. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, use them year round. Definitely.
Year round of being mindful.
Yes, that's honestly that's a beautiful way to sum it up. It's just paying attention. It's just being mindful. Yeah.
Yeah. And it takes time too. So another thing I like to remind people of is give yourself some grace. It's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to be perfect overnight.
Yep.
Being mindful isn't necessarily, it's not really even an inherent trait for a lot of people. So it's just be okay with whatever happens and don't beat yourself up and be too hard on yourself because you can't undo it now that it's done. And you have to remind yourself of that. Like it's done now. Now we keep moving forward. How do we keep going? Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's okay to ask yourself how you can learn or improve the next time. But yeah, definitely not worth, like we can just be so brutal to ourselves. And it's not worth it. So look at the experience. How could you, handle it differently next time? Maybe use it as information or knowledge for the next time, but definitely give yourself grace for sure.
Exactly. Like one other tip that's just good to have as a tip, because it applies at all times. Because why wouldn't anything we just said apply at any time of our lives? But it's getting enough sleep.
Ooh, yes. Oh my gosh.
It's a stressful time of year. We're running around. We're getting a lot of stuff done. You have a lot of things to do. You might sacrifice your sleep to get things done that you need to get done. And the problem is lack of sleep leads to increased eating behaviors. That's like huge correlation there.
Yeah.
And if you're someone who's struggling with just feeling hungry or wanting to eat constantly, ask yourself if you're getting enough sleep.
Absolutely.
And we won't talk about sleep too heavily in this episode because we just did actually not too long ago back in earlier this year with Kate. So she had a whole episode we did with sleep then, which is great. So if you want to learn a lot about it, that would be a great episode to listen to and kind of refamiliarize with some of the tips on how to sleep better. But keep that in consideration too. It's not always just the eating and the exercise around this time of year. Are you sleeping enough? Because that can drive some behaviors.
Absolutely. Yeah. And things can really I almost feel like for a lot of health things, success can really start or end with that sleep radar and where are you at? Because we can really snowball if we're not getting enough sleep because it makes you stressed, right? And then stress and sleep both play different roles in different ways with our hormones and eating and blah, blah, blah. So that's a really good one to check in on is getting that sleep. It's self-care, right? Take care of yourself, get some good sleep.
We got to take care of ourselves, That's just the end of the day. It's we matter and we got to take care of ourselves. And sometimes that means you got to sleep more.
Absolutely.
And if you ever at any point are struggling with sleeping and you're like, wow, this is really hard and I don't know what to do and I have insomnia or have this or have that, sleep clinic. Like Kaiser offers that. There's a sleep clinic. They can analyze your sleep, make sure you're doing things right. Maybe you need a CPAP. Who knows? And don't be ashamed of that.
No, it's actually much more common than you think.
Yes.
Quality sleep matters.
No. Oh gosh. So I have a just funny story, but it's not funny. It's actually terrifying. But I have a friend whose husband had to get a CPAP and they're my age. They're in their mid 30s.
Wow.
And her husband had to get a CPAP and, she's a nurse. I'm in work for a hospital, Kaiser. So we get the medical thing and we're just chatting because we met each other in pre-nursing. Like that's how I know her.
Oh, no way.
And so I was like, oh, well, I'm so sorry. You're going to be staying awake all night with your CPAP. She goes, oh, I already have a CPAP. And I was like, oh, you both got CPAPs. I didn't even realize that. But
my gosh. Yeah.
So common.
So common.
It's so just don't be afraid.
Advertised, right? But don't be afraid. Have no shame. That's quality sleep. You literally cannot beat it. So
yeah, the fact that I have a couple of friends, both in my age range, who have CPAPs that I did not expect. I was like, you are way too young for that. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Don't make these assumptions.
Even us, we are learning. Absolutely. And it's kind of like exercise. No one can get good sleep for you. No one can move your body for you. So it's just,
and no one can eat healthy for you either.
Also true. Also true. We got to prioritize ourselves to a certain extent, right?
Exactly. So this is the holiday season for you. This is your opportunity to take the reins of your life, and you get to determine how you want these holidays to go.
Love that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
Well said.
my hope is that you build some awesome habits that can carry you through the holiday, 1, and 2, carry you into the new year. So you're feeling supported and confident long before everyone else jumps on that train. So
yes, get started early so that it's already, you're like feeling good before anybody else is even thinking about it.
Exactly.
And I wanted to add, because I should have said this at the beginning, the tips that we are talking about, don't feel like you need to crush all of them at once. Pick like 1, maybe 2 favorites of yours and go from there, but don't feel like you need to implement all of them. Baby steps.
Exactly. I'm of the same mindset. To make changes, it takes a lot of energy and effort. And to do too many changes at once, you drain that battery too fast and they don't make any changes at all.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It feels like we're drowning and we're like, I give up. So baby steps.
It takes a lot of energy to make big changes. So that's why we keep saying, give yourself grace. 1 change you make, which might be like, well, I'm moving more. Huge change.
Perfect.
That might be it.
Yep.
Take it as a win, right?
Absolutely. Huge victory. Yeah,
exactly.
I agree.
But unfortunately, it is that time. It went by so fast.
It really did.
It did. It's like actually really fast. Yeah. But this is our last episode of the 2024 year. So I hope all of you have a wonderful, healthy, and successful holiday season.
Yes.
Positive Choice is always around to try to help you and support you as best we can, where we can. We always have a wealth of older episodes to listen to if you want something to listen to on the breaks or long drives. But, all that fun stuff we have available to you, usually for like minimal to no cost. Like podcast is free. With that being said, if you're listening, make sure you like, share, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, you can comment below and we can respond. But until next time, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.